So, how many of you here are married? How many of you know that there's differences in your marriage, right? Somebody's the early bird and someone wants to stay up all night. Somebody's the mess maker, someone's the organized one, right? Thought this was a cute one. So in life, there are two kinds of people, and they're often married to each other, right?
Which one are you, baby? That's what I want to know.
Oh, when we were first married, I was the E. I was always, haven't ran out of gas in
I'd hop in her car and it's like, I can't believe it's even running. She said, I never run out of gas.
Right, because people like that, they know their cars, right? They say, oh, I know I can go 16 more miles. No.
And guess where I found her on the freeway? Out of gas.
That was a long time ago.
It was.
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah. So, yes. So what we find is people often marry someone who's very different than them, right? Because it's what attracted us to them in the first place. The traits, the characteristics. I'm shy, he's outgoing. I'm not so smart, he's brilliant. Whatever. You know, you're drawn to it because it's part of what you want to be. And it draws us together. So difference, it's good. We can't all be the same. It'd be pretty boring. But difference is hard. You guys know that? Yep, we've been married almost 34 years.
Absolutely. And they've been, just like Doug, they've been perfect. We've never had a fight.
Yeah. His dad did a joke years ago, and he said, yeah, like, I've been married for 25 good years. Like, what?
Oh,
so
yeah.
I only count the good ones, he said.
Because they had been married about almost 50.
Yeah.
And his deal was, he said, I only count the good ones.
Yeah.
Right?
But life is hard when you marry someone different. It's not what you think it's going to be, because it seems like it's going to be perfect. It's what you drew you to each other, but then it changes.
Yeah, so I want you to turn, if your spouse is here, or even your friend, I want you to turn to your spouse specifically, or your friend, and say, you're different. Okay? And then I wanted you to say, but different is good. It's really good, because if we were the same, and this is what I believe that we were born with parts missing. Notice I didn't say parts broken, but parts missing. And Paul and I are people of faith, and I believe there's two components in our lives that are important, and one of them is our spouse and our life partner. When that person comes into our life and we allow that difference to fill our life, we became stronger, we became better. And the other component that I believe is so important is my faith in God. Those two pieces are pieces that are missing that I need in my life so that I can be complete and I can be whole. You see, there's something, for those that are steel makers, there's something called Damascus steel, and it's very cherished because of its hardness, but it's also cherished on its ability to hone a very fine edge. But the process of bringing Damascus steel from iron ore requires a lot of energy and a lot of effort. It requires heating that iron ore. It also requires bringing in other aspects into that iron ore process, and then it requires beating of that iron ore to get them to meld together. That's the process. But without that melding of those other components, that blade would never be as sharp as it needed to be, and it also wouldn't be as hard as it would be. Because what would happen is the blade would be too soft and it couldn't hold an edge, or be too brittle and it would be broken. You see, I am better because of her in my life, because that piece makes us stronger and more powerful together.
You know, we start out with all starry eyes. We see the love of our life, maybe like us, walking across a little North Dakota campus, Podunk town. I don't know if you're from North Dakota, but we both went there from far away with a lot of divine intervention. And it reminds me a little bit of this story. This week, I have a little granddaughter, Evelyn, and she's about as precious as she comes. But she came home from school and told her mama, I'm going to be marrying Ashton. She's in preschool. And she said, oh, really? Did Ashton ask you to marry him? No, but it's always good if you marry someone from your class. And he's kind of my style, Mom. She said, and I think I'm his style. So I thought that was so precious, but it's about that innocent, right? When you first fall in love, the infatuation. You're my style, you make me happy, we have chemistry, and I think we're gonna be perfect together. So Wes and I started out with all these dreams. We met, we talked hours on end, and I had something, talk about starting with a dream. Deep within me, I'd seen a lot of marriages, but I knew there was something more. And I wanted to find someone who had that same desire. I didn't want to just be like everyone. I didn't want there to be unfaithfulness and hurts and neglect. I wanted someone who is all mine, and I wanted to be all his, and it's like, I didn't know what that looked like. I just knew what was in my heart. So almost 34 years ago, we got married. Girl on campus, boy on campus, pretty little wedding, nothing like today's weddings, but anyway, it was simple with cake and punch and all of that, but it was lovely, and we started out with a heart for God, a heart for each other.
Yeah, and that's where the team piece comes in.
Just a second.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, but it didn't stay quite as perfect, right? Because what comes into the marriage is not just the girl he sees, but all that I bring with me and all my family. And what he brings in is all of his experiences.
You mean I had junk in the trunk? No.
Your family is just kind of odd. No.
We're perfect.
No. You know what, right? All those, what you do at Christmas and how you react to disagreements.
We don't have disagreements because we don't talk about them.
Silence. So all these things that we didn't realize you don't see those when you just only see perfection in this person. And as we begin to be one, and you see that, and you're like, oh my gosh, with each one of those comes another brick. You begin to possibly build some walls between you. Disappointments, hurts. So it builds over time. But again, we had a vision, and we knew what we were working toward.
So part of the team piece is really building or working together. And some of you may have heard this story, but everybody knows what a draft horse is. Just think Budweiser beer and the Clydesdales. A Clydesdale is a draft horse. They were originally bred to carry the knights into battle with all that armor. So they're huge horses. I mean, their backs are like this tall. You can't just jump on top of them. But the ability of that draft horse is their pulling power, their muscle. And so a single draft horse by him or herself can pull about 8,000 pounds. To put that on your mind's eye, take 3 Toyota Corollas, crush them, put them in a wagon, that's 8,000 pounds. One horse, 8,000 pounds. But if I get 2 horses together that have never trained before, never worked with one another, and I just hook them up in a harness system, how much do you think they'll pull? 16,000? Maybe less, maybe more? Believe it or not, an untrained pair will actually pull not 16,000, not twice as much, but 24,000 pounds together. But if I can take those 2 horses and I work them together and they learn to pull together, they know how to strain together, they know how to take that next step together, a well-trained pair of draft horses can pull 32 pounds, 32,000 pounds. Not one time, but 4 times as a team. That's when you embrace in your marriage the ability to pull together. You can do multiple things. The Bible would say 1 can put 1,000 to flight, but 2 can put 10,000 to flight. It's the power of team. But in order to embrace that, the first thing the horse has to do is be willing to submit to the harness. A horse does not like something on its face. That's what happens in our marriage. We have to submit to the harness, to be willing to stick our head and our nose through that harness so that we can shoulder together and pull together. And that's the power of the team. Not just one horse has to do that. Both have to submit to the power of the harness and be willing to pull together the power of the team.
Yeah. So those differences that started out that just had me mesmerized over my sweetheart or he over me, pretty soon those kind of start to irritate you. And with a little, maybe different reactions, a little annoyance, hurts, conflict, again, that wall begins to get built. And where there used to be loving words, thoughtful gestures, it's replaced now with sarcasm, a little annoyance, silent treatment, just not kind of championing each other's strengths anymore. And over time, you can really begin to drift apart, or maybe not even drift apart, but just be kind of going through life side by side. There's so many distractions with the kids, with work. We really forget who we fell in love with in the first place. And before we know it, we can look at that wall and say, I don't even know where to start. I don't know if it's worth it. Seems like everyone else is like this. He's good, I'm good. And I think you begin to give up and you begin to think good enough is good enough. As Doug and Tia were talking about, Charlene, you quit dreaming that anything good is possible.
Yeah, and working together is like this rope, right? When we first get married, go ahead and pick up your end, babe, just not the metal part. There you go. This is the piece that we said, hey, we have a dream or we have a goal. Lonnie, can I borrow you? Would you be so kind as to help us out? I know this is kind of impromptu. Would you stand just right in the middle on that step? So I'm going to use Lonnie as something that Paula and I agree upon as far as a goal. Would you grab the middle of that rope? Just grab it. All right, thank you. So we have, as a married couple, those dreams that we want, right? And Lonnie's going to represent that. It can be a great marriage. It can be a great family. It can be maybe we want to help other people. We want to impact the world. But guess what's happening? We're pulling against each other. And I'm saying, no, my way's better. And she's saying,
no, I'm always right.
Right? And so what we have to do is we're pulling against each other because we haven't learned to work together. And guess what's happening to poor Lonnie? He's not going anywheres. Our dreams aren't going anywheres. In fact, pull a little bit. When we're pulling against each other, my 8,000 pounds ability as a team player has just got cut in half because I'm so busy fighting against my spouse. But what would happen if we went from me, it's all about me, to it's all about we, to the place where we understood what Doug was talking about. What are you trying to accomplish? And we began to turn, and we began to walk, and we began to work towards each other. Guess what happens? Look at Lonnie. Guess what he's got in his hands? He's got a handle, right? He's got a handle, and let's say that's our dream. Maybe we want to help others, and maybe he's stuck, right? Guess what we did when we came together? It's not my dream. It's not Paula's dream. It's our dream. Notice I didn't come all the way towards Paula because guess where Lonnie would go if we went this way? He wouldn't get out and move forward. We'd be dragging his carcass down the road this way, and he wouldn't get where he needs to go. We have to come to our place, our vision, our dream.
Yeah, and many of you have said, gosh, it's been so long, the wall's so big, well, how can I change it now, right? I think tonight, more than anything, I want to challenge you in your marriages to say, what would it take? This wall doesn't have to stay, but what does it really take? It starts, first of all, with decision and intention. It starts with coming to a place of humility and kindness to say, babe, I'm sorry for the wall that's between us. It's not what we signed up for. Not sure how it all happened, but I'd like to start building a bridge. It's the one who says, boy, it was a rough disagreement again, but going and saying, I don't always choose the right words. My intentions were not to hurt you, but to show you I love you, to show you you matter more than anything. You see, those soft words, those soften the walls, they soften the hurts, because it comes back. If no matter what he said or did, if he comes back and said, man, my intentions were not to hurt, all at once, the wall's not there. But if we spend all of our time trying to justify and argue our point, then it becomes the impasse and that wall doesn't go down. The other thing is beginning to, as Charlene talked about, gratitude. Be grateful again for the things in your spouse's life that you've maybe overlooked, because right now all you can see of all the things that they do that annoy you and the pressures that you have. But anyone else walking into the room can see the value that that person has. You've just forgotten. Calling that out in them again, championing them in their strengths to say, thank you. Thank you for making coffee. Thank you for barbecuing. Thanks for folding the laundry. It doesn't have to be much, but just that appreciation of just who you are and the strengths you have.
Babe, I like the words that you said, calling out. Did you realize that my wife, one of her best attributes is that she calls out stuff in me that I cannot see? I'm not talking about calling me on the carpet. I'm just saying, babe, you've got this strength. Do you realize that? You see, when that's our responsibility as a team player pulling together, is see the strengths in our partner and calling those out. You're awesome. You're amazing. You're beautiful. Those words you spoke were powerful. That's what we do when we call out. You see, I don't know if you guys, I'm from eastern Montana originally, and we do a lot of oil back there. And in the refining process of oil, this raw crude oil is just about worthless. It's just kind of sticky, and it's like messy, and it's like, how do I get something useful out of that? Well, what they do is they put it in a refining process, and it's called a cracking process. And in order for something to explode, right, what it does is they have to have three things. They have to have oxygen, right? They have to have fuel, and they have to have some kind of ignition source, right? And usually it's heat. Well, when they crack this fuel, they add heat to this container, and you go, oh my gosh, it's going to blow up. They've got the fuel, they've got the crude oil, but guess what they're missing oxygen. You see what happens when you starve that oxygen from that fuel, it cannot ignite. When you starve those words from your spouse of encouragement, of love, of generosity, you're missing the opportunity to ignite something in her or ignite something in him far beyond their ability to understand. They see themselves as crude oil, and I see this as JP4, which is a jet fuel. But my job as a spouse is to ignite that in her. Your job as a spouse and a partner is to ignite that in him or her and make a difference in their life. So call them out.
Yeah, because the stuff that's up here, it seems so real to us, but other people can't see that. When Wes comes home at the end of a day and he's discouraged because he doesn't feel like he did that well with his clients or his presentation, I'm like, babe, listen to you. You're amazing. Nobody works harder for their clients than you do. Are you kidding? And he's like, okay. But we are so hard on ourselves. And the other thing that I want to challenge you, there's a lot of forces in our world and in our lives as individuals and as a couple. There's a lot of pressures on marriages and a lot of fight to stay strong. Your spouse needs you to pray for them. Think about it. Other than your mother, nobody's going to pray for your spouse but you. So if you're not praying for them, who is? That means they have the spiritual battles, they've got the pressures of life, they've got the pressures of struggle, finances, the kids. But when you begin to pray for them, here's what happens. First of all, God answers our prayers. He meets us. So we begin to see the blessings come through our spouses because we're praying over them, favor. We also we begin to have more appreciation and love for them because if you've prayed for something, you fall in love with it again. So you want to talk about reigniting your marriage? Begin to pray for your spouse, asking God to bless them and thanking God for the attributes that you're so thankful for. But that is the hugest part. And then guess what happens also? God changes us. I think Charlene talked about that earlier. It's us that gets changed during prayer. And all at once, the focus is not so much on Wes's problems or his annoyances. All at once I realize, wow, my attitude sucks. That was a really rude thing to say. And I find myself where otherwise we're at the end of the rope going, it's your problem. I don't know what's your problem, but you should fix it. And instead it's that. When we come for that place of humility, even if that other person doesn't change, like they're not even trying, things begin to soften and you can have a beautiful thing. So I guess I want to challenge you tonight. If you notice that there's a wall there that's being built, you have two choices. You can just say it's as good as it gets. You can do the easy thing, that's to walk away and say, can't do it. Or you can ask God for strength, look your spouse in the eye, and say, it's time we kick this wall down. So that's what I want to challenge you tonight. Think about that. Ask, what do you really want? Is it worth fighting for? And go in and kick your wall down.